Welcome back, everybody, to NA Open Division Round 9. No? Yes. Yes, that sounds right. Week 5. There we go.
You're good. You got it.
I'm
Yeah.
we got there. We got there. I'm joined once again by my amazing analysts, Green Havoc and Thibble Dork. I'm not going to compliment either of them this time because the last time I did that, I got in trouble. So
You're still in
Well,
trouble.
let's.
well,
Ah,
hold on. You
You
didn't get in
frankly just
trouble
made it
for.
worse.
I was gonna say you didn't get in trouble for complimenting us. You got in trouble for not complimenting us.
oh my god, you guys are such
Now I'm just
chicks. Okay.
confused. You know what? Hey, how about Overwatch? What a
Yeah,
game.
let's jump straight into our matchup. We've got, as Thibault mentioned earlier, teams with very interesting names. Rebind Shift versus Marty's Militia. Let's start with Marty's Militia. Thibault, what can you tell us about these guys?
This is another team that we don't have a lot for. We know they used to be called Forehead, which is so great. They decided to rebrand into something a little less general. They went for Marty's Militia, which is sure, fine, okay. Looking at their team sheet here, they've got a couple interesting flex capabilities here. They have a guy named Trick Plays who likes playing a little Tracer, a little Genji, some aggressive in your face sort of play styles.
Brig.
No, no, no. His third is
Yeah.
Zarya. He's kind of like a Sinatra style guy. I don't know. I don't know if he's worth 150. May on the field, so that should be cool. Get it? Because May. Anywho, there's also a person named Etc. who plays Widowmaker, Pharah, and Roadhog, which is also a really interesting combination of heroes. From what I can glean with my big brain here, it's looking like this is going to be another like fun composition team. These guys have been together for about 6 months, but they haven't practiced a lot together since winter break started for them, which was like just recently. So we should be seeing more plays focused on individual capabilities rather than their synergy because they're getting back from their break. They're probably a little rusty here, but we could see some cool things. So I'm interested. We'll see.
Well, the team they're coming up against seems to have a little bit more time together for practicing. They do like 8 hours a week, which is not too bad. That is, of course, Rebind Shift. So, Havoc, what else can you tell me about Rebind Shift?
Well, much like Marty's Militia, as they're named after their Ana player, presumably, we have a team that's named after, well, not one of their players, but a play style. AK has a tendency to hit shift a lot and spends more time on Minecraft than he does Overwatch. So there's a little bit there.
Oh dear.
We've got a fun looking team though. They definitely have some jokes in between. Basically, all of the information they gave are just inside jokes about each other and how they operate as a group. Like, they don't know each other's names, even though they've been together for 5 months and such. And that's kind of a good sign for a team. It means that they know each other, and I'm hoping that that means that's going to translate into some synergy on the field.
Well, we've seen that these two teams have been together for more or less the same amount of time. And given the last match we saw, what can you guys tell me about the amount of time that a team has been together? What kind of an impact can that make?
I'll still hold that it's pretty important, but obviously there will be moments where you can still overcome a perceived lack of synergy. It is strictly off of maybe some like you guys are just really in the moment together, like you're all really firing on the same cylinders for once, or just because your individual players step up and make some big plays. If you get some good Dragon Blades, some good Diva Bombs, anything can happen, right? So synergy will make you more consistent, but individual play can give you higher peaks and lower valleys. So it's an interesting balance, but at this level, it's who knows, man.
Very true. Very true. The other thing about it, though, is for some of these teams, they don't all have coaches. So sometimes when you see a team that's practicing 4 or 5 times a week, missing the right fundamentals, you're really just playing Overwatch. And when you meet a team who has those fundamentals on lock, it just doesn't even seem like you're playing the same game.
All right. Well, that's a lot of information for everybody to digest. And while you all get into that, I'm going to throw it to our amazing casters. Please take it away, guys.
Thank you so much, Naori. I am Pulsable. I'm here with Zark, and we're going to be your casters for today's match. You excited to get into this one, Zark?
I'm so ready. This is going to be a lot of fun. Again, like the desk we're talking about earlier, it's Rebind Shift versus Marty's Militia. Two teams that are both 5-3 and have identical map win and map loss records as well. So these are teams that are so even, so neck and neck. That's just an equation for a really great matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what do you think about our starting map here? We are going to be going over to Nepal. So, what kind of things do you expect to see here?
So, you know, since the meta is that triple tank, triple support goats composition, we should probably expect that sort of thing to be run. But one of the characters that is sometimes added into the mix for a little extra flavor is the Mei. Lots of teams like to utilize those walls to separate certain members from the rest of their team, focus them down, and then once you get one person out of the equation, usually that main tank, the Reinhardt or the Winston, then it becomes a lot easier to snowball the rest of that team fight. So that's what I'm kind of expecting here. We should
snowball?
see. Yeah.
Snowball?
I see what you did there. I see.
And we're on, I mean, it is also Nepal Village, so there's plenty of snow on this map.
That's true.
So,
That's
triple pun.
And, you know, I'm really looking forward to this map. This is one where I'm always curious about how teams are going to approach it, because it used to be that teams would go onto that high ground all the time, and they would kind of fight there and then make their way onto the point. But I feel like as the triple tank, triple support sort of meta has come into fruition, we've seen teams go just straight to point, try to take up position there. And it looks like that's what the teams are going to go and try and do right now.
You especially want to when you have that Mei on your team, both teams running that variant. Hax is the first one to go down on the side of Rebind Shift, and nailed it soon to follow. Marty's Militia have just charged in here with unbridled aggression. You know what? Nobody calls Marty a chicken.
No, they certainly do not. Mars Militia doing a good job utilizing those walls to their advantage, and then Rebind Shift, once they lost 1 or 2, they realized they couldn't win the fight. They backed right on out and used that Mei wall to make sure they couldn't get taken out as they were retreating. So nice little move there. Coming back into this, Rusty, they almost have their shatter. Keep your eye out for that.
Ooh, the wall comes out from Kamina. It doesn't quite manage to split off Marty's Militia as intended. Now, Rebind Shift trying to catch on. The shatter goes out to not much of an avail, but enough to catch. Nailed it off in the front line. Without that Reinhardt, Rebind Shift just going to go for an early reset.
Again, like you said, once they lost the Reinhardt, they had to back out of there. Reinhardt is so important for taking those engagements that once you lose them, you just gotta back out. It's not worth giving the ultimate giving the enemy that much more ultimate charge. So coming back into this, you know, Marty's Militia, they already have 45% on the point. Rebind Shift, they're coming up on a couple of ults though. Critically, they're gonna have a Transcendence in case they. You know, we could see that couple of ultimates coming out from Marty's Militia, but X-Feral, look at this grab.
Yeah, the grab comes out. The sound barrier is there to try and counter it, and a self-destruct on the point. Going to catch, nailed it yet again. The main tank of Rebind Shift is the first to fall. Both Blizzards out on the field as everybody's getting frozen up. But only Crazy Flames mech to fall. Marty soon to follow here, and Marty's Militia are looking to try and stall this one out. They're losing plenty of players, but you know, they're also firing back. X gets frozen and Trick Play cleans him up, and what could have been a fight Rebind Shift get back in here on is now going to be one that they're going to have to desperately regroup. Although nailed it, just commits the shatter despite the fact that he goes down afterwards, and now 10% remaining for Rebind Shift to try and get back in.
Oh, that really hurts if you nailed it. You needed that to be really big to secure that point, but it didn't happen. It's going to be a grab here early coming out from Marty.
Yeah, it locks most of Rebind Shift off of the point, but Crazy Flames mech is the first to fall. Still a full team here for Rebind Shift, and the grab on the point going to lock out several members of Marty's Militia. Trade's still going either way, and the shatter over on the side out from Rusty locks down 2. But the kills don't come through. It's Rebind Shift with all of the momentum, and now they have all of the players. Marty alone on the point, can't stall it out, and at 99, Rebind Shift are finally going to get that flip.
Whew, that was dicey for Rebind Shift, but they got the point flip right in the nick of time. Beautiful job. Unfortunately, they don't have a whole lot of ultimates to back it up in this next team fight. They're going to have Transcendence if they can get it up quickly, but Marty's Militia, they're coming in this with a bomb and that May ultimate. So this could be Marty's Militia taking this right back from Rebind.
Yeah, gotta be careful here. The wall comes out yet again. Not the best placement, although a wall on the other side manages to separate NKN's Transcendence from the team long enough for Hacks to go down. Now it's a player advantage for Marty's Militia. The shadow goes down to no avail, but you don't need it when you're just cleaning them up with a nanoed Reinhardt. 40%, and the flip goes through. 99% for Marty's Militia here on Village. They're just getting the cleanup one by one. Rebind Shift will fall, and Marty's Militia will strike first on Nepal.
The nanoed Reinhardt. You love seeing it. Beautiful stuff. And Marty's Militia definitely looked really strong there on Shrine. It seemed they only really lost one team fight the entire map. The last one took a little long. That's why Rebind Shift was able to get 40% on the clock there. But overall, Marty's Militia definitely looking dominant there. They know how to run that Mei very effectively. And it looks like as we come on to the next map, Shrine here, they are actually going to abandon the Mei and just run triple tank, triple support. Just your pretty standard Zen Rhine goats for both teams.
Well, you say standard, but Rebind Shift, they're swapping out the Brigitte for the Ana. This is something we've seen since the shield nerf has gone through for Brig in the tier 3 scene. Haven't seen it any higher than that because they've been playing on a less recent patch. See if Rebind Shift can make it work. It means they're going to have they're not going to have that armor pack, so Nailed It is going to have to be a little bit more careful. But the Bionade goes down onto Marty's Militia, denies so much healing. Beautiful placement from Hacks. It's just going to make it real easy to clean up that neutral fight.
Hacks has been huge, that play. They started with a really nice sleep, and that forced Marty's Militia to wait until they woke up. They couldn't move. Rusty's shield got a lot of damage pumped into it, and Rebind Shift, after Hacks got that nice anti in there, they were able to just run on in, sweep up the rest of the kills. Really nice start for Rebind Shift. And Nailed It has a shatter. Rusty, they only have 25%.
Heavy ult advantage for Rebind Shift as they come in here. Bio goes down onto the front line, forces Marty's Militia back for the moment. Now the shatter out. Oh, Rusty Goomba is going to be the first one to fall, and it lays out most of the team. Yet another quick, decisive fight for Rebind Shift.
Really well done there. Nailed It just didn't care about Rusty's shield. They just went right past it, got a nice little shatter, took everyone out. And now look at the ultimate economy Rebind Shift have. They have 3-4 ultimates coming up in the next fight. Keep on a lookout for NKN's grab here.
Yeah, and Marty's Militia still no ults to their name. They do have a nice bio, but they get caught in the grab and bioed themselves. Rebind Shift are not letting these fights go more than 10 seconds.
No, which is horrible for Marty's Militia because they have no way to build up their own ultimates to counter what Rebind Shift are throwing at them. And so now Rebind Shift are doing such a good job of being measured with how they're using their ultimates that they still have 3 in the bank to go. So even if, they get a grab in this next fight, if etc. is able to get it, they're still going to have Kamina's Transcendence. So Rebind Shift, they're definitely sitting good.
The Shatter Bomb comes out, makes it so Rusty's the first to fall. A huge early fight advantage for Rebind Shift, but it's going to be equalized. Nailed It goes down as well, and now they're trading supports. Still kills going either way, but as we tick up to 90%, this is not a fight that Marty's Militia can afford to lose. They invested Transcendence too late to save Marty, and now it is a 3v5 on the point in favor of Rebind Shift. The shatter out from Rusty only finds one, and the follow-up cannot come through. A bio to deny any kind of healing onto Rusty means that Rebind Shift gonna work their way back in here with the reinforcements. The emergency wrecking ball on the point, the adaptive shielding, not gonna make him live very long. The nano just to try and make it so that Marty's Militia can desperately sustain. He gets locked up in the grab. Now it's just the Lucio contesting the point. Marty's got to try and live through here, but now the nano coming out onto Nailed It and the sound barrier to back it up. Even a grab can't save them, and Rebind Shift gonna strike back, tie it up on Nepal.
And it's worth mentioning. We didn't really catch it in the middle of the chaos and the action there, but Marty's Militia Corey actually swapped onto the Ana in the middle of that map as well. So that kind of gave an ultimate charge reset for them, and I don't believe they really got the value that that Hack CMP was getting out of their Ana kit. So I think that Marty's Militia, while they tried to throw back the same composition that Rebind Shift were thrown at them, it didn't really pan out for them. Rebind Shift, they were able to just have such a clear ultimate advantage throughout the map that they really did a good job of closing out Shrine right there. So now we're moving on to Sanctum. It's a map where Orisa is a little more popular, and it looks like that's what we're going to see here. Both teams running the Orisa, but Rebind Shift, they have that halt hook combo with the Roadhog, whereas Marty's Militia, they're going with a double DPS, double support. So it's 2-2-2. It's just Roadhog and Diva are a little bit different there.
Also, what's different is Marty's Militia going to be opting for the double sniper. Widow and Ashe taking up different angles, and it's only NKN for Rebind Shift who's going to try and contest them both. Kamina on the Junkrat, going to try and lay some damage down into the front line, but the Orisa shield is just so hard to burn through. Ooh, trades go back either way, so now it's one sniper for both sides as the teams still fight out this point. Fire coming down forces Rebind Shift to play defensively for the moment, and they've got to be careful. Oh, the dynamite out from Trick deals so much damage, and now 2 kills for Marty's Militia means they're going to be the first ones to cap this point.
So interesting strategies being played out right now, right? Marty's Militia, they went for that double sniper so they could get around the shield, whereas Rebind Shift, they went with a composition that could destroy the shield quickly, and then they could move in afterwards. But Marty's Militia trick plays, they were able to get that initial pick off onto the Junkrat, made a lot less damage going into that shield. Marty's Militia was able to sustain a little more. But now Rebind Shift to change their composition a little bit. Kamina is on the Genji, trying to get into that backline, disrupt those snipers a little bit more.
Oh, the self-destruct into the room where the entirety of Rebind is. Doesn't manage to quite find anything, and Crazy takes a dip in the pool while throwing that one out. An unfortunate series of events for Marty's, but they're going to stabilize, etc., getting both of the DPS straight off the bat. Rebind Shift have still set themselves up on the point behind the Orisa shield, so this is not a one fight as of yet. Etc. wants to lock this one out with his 4th kill of the fight now, and Rebind Shift gonna have to go for yet another reset.
Oof, that hurts, and I love the way that Marty's Militia set themselves up, right? As soon as they saw that Rebind Shift went down into that little alcove, they spread out around it so that they had sight lines on really any way that they tried to leave that area, just trapping them in there. So really nice stuff, but someone's got to start giving some pressure to etc., and it looks like it's going to be NKM switching over to the Widowmaker themselves.
I can't really apply too much pressure at the moment. The supercharger, the bongo, if you will, is out from Rusty Groomba. Now the sound barrier to engage with Rebind Shift. They move in. They can't seem to find a kill as of yet, but Marty's Militia are very low. There they are. All the kills come through in a matter of an instant. And finally, Rebind Shift off the back of some support alts are going to cap this one over.
All right, Rebind Shift, they switched to dive. It ended up working for them in the end. Put a lot of pressure on those supports. You could tell, etc. was not having an easy time on the Widowmaker that time around. But now coming in this next fight, we're going to see really sights probably for both Widowmakers here. But crucially, trick plays. They have that Bobby Boy. We'll see if they decide to use it.
Yeah, Bob's got to do something here, but Marty's Militia have plenty of time. They had 92%, and they're going to start this fight off with the self-destruct on the point to buy some space. Etc. wins the Widow battle onto NKN, and now Bob's out on the point. He's going to do something. He's going to zone the players of Rebind Shift off. A sound barrier out for Marty's Militia. Can't manage to save trick plays, but it gives them the ability to get aggressive and clean up. Bob gets 2 kills on the point, and with that, it's looking like it's curtains for Rebind Shift. As the last kill comes down onto NKN, the wick will burn away, and Marty's Militia will claim our first map.
Very nicely done. Again, just goes to show you just how neck and neck these two teams are, right? I mean, going the distance here on Nepal to start things off. But in the end, like you said, Marty's Militia looking stronger. It's going to be nailed it with the play of the game as Reinhardt likely a shatter here. I believe, is this when they went behind? Yeah, it was. Beautiful stuff. That's the stuff of dreams for us, Pausable, as Reinhardt mains.
Oh yeah, gotta love when you can just, you know, WM1Q, right?
Beautiful stuff.
But I got a question for you real quick.
Yeah.
So on that third map, Sanctum, the third stage, if you will, we saw both Orissas come out. Now, when you lose the first fight on an Orissa, what is your opinion on staying on that Orissa for the second push?
You know, it's tough. If you can't set up initially and you can't win that first fight, it's hard to set back up because it's almost a race to the point to set up to gain that ground. And then once you have it, I really think that you need to start looking for some other answers. And I think it took Rebind Shift a little too long to figure out what exactly that answer was. I think they were on the right track once they went over to the dive. But I think that once Marty's Militia, they tried to come back into, once Marty's Militia came back in, they seemed to crumble a little bit. The blade from Kamina didn't really find anything there. It was a tough go. So I think that switching off the Orissa if you don't win the first initial fight is a smart move if you're really getting pressured by the rest of that composition.
Yeah, I gotta agree. And you know, when we did see Rebind Shift switch to that dive you're talking about, they immediately won the fight, right? You know, they get that Winston, they pressured those supports, they did exactly what you would want to do, and they won. So, you know, maybe a bit of you know, more decisive, more willing to swap quicker, I should say. More willing to swap quicker. Me can't do the English good. But you know, if they read that just a little bit faster, they could have held that second point on for, or that third point on for longer.
Yeah, I think so. I think their initial engage, once they went on to that dive composition, looked really clean, looked really good. But once Marty's Militia was getting back into the fight, it seemed like things kind of fell apart. It seemed like the comms kind of broke down. There wasn't a clear, decisive path, like you were saying. The target prioritization was kind of all over the place, and Marty's Militia was able to capitalize on it. But we'll see if they can continually capitalizing on those mistakes that Rebind Shift were making as we are moving on to Dorado now.
Now, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Speaking of continuing to capitalize on things, we just saw both sides bring out snipers when we were on Sanctum. Dorado's not a map where you should be afraid to run snipers. Do you think we're going to see that here, or is it just going to be Go Goat's forehead?
You know, it's a tough one. I think that since we did see something a little different on Sanctum, I think it's possible we could see some snipers. I think, etc., they seemed pretty confident there when they were playing the Widowmaker before. And I think it's possible. Dorado, it's a map where the high ground can be so important for teams to utilize. You know, triple tank, triple support, it is run pretty frequently on Dorado. Personally, I would like to see it changed up a little bit. I think a lot of the viewers probably would as well. But at least out the gates, it looks like, first of all, it's worth mentioning that the sides have flipped. Marty's Militia is now on the left, Rebind Shift on the right. So it looks like Marty's Militia on the defense to start off. Looks like it's going to be that triple tank, triple support.
You know, but again, they opt for that Ana Zen rather than the Brig, right? They opt for the double flex support rather than the Brigida, and it makes the Reinhardt battle so hard to win out without that armor pack.
Yeah, interesting decision there. Last time it seemed like Hax was getting the better, but Corey, big anti.
Yeah, that's a nice opening purple down onto Rebind Shift, but they managed to back up. They managed to weather the storm, and now they get to come back in. A purple down onto Rusty Goomba. No heals for him, and Kamina finishes him up. And now it's basically curtains for the defense, or maybe not. As they push back in, they get aggressive. They find 2 kills. Trade's going back and forth right now. But it's hard to say if this fight is actually good for Marty's Militia.
It's a tough one. I think that since they were able to get a little bit of extra alt charge themselves, I think that's a win. They were able to go back. They're going to have a second contest on this Rebind shift. They're definitely getting more value out of the Ana than Marty's did. I think that that's going to be crucial coming back into this. Just keep your eyes on how the Anas are playing with those antis, because last time Rusty Goomba really got hit hard by it.
Oh, but now it's the entirety of Rebind Shift getting hit hard. Hax is the first one to fall, and now Rebind Shift just got to kind of wait it out. But Marty's Militia, they want to push forward. They're not going to get too aggressive, go for the full cleanup, but they are going to keep him out for the moment.
Now, it's going to be a lot of ultimates coming up here. I hope you're ready, possible, because we're going to have a bomb, the shatter, and possibly even a grav coming out from Marty's Militia. Rebind Shift, they're going to have quite a few as well. And Kamina, they actually went on to the Hanzo, and they're going to have a dragon grav combo.
Well, there it is, the Dragaton in, and the bio makes it so the cleanup comes through on the Rusty Goomba. Now a bomb actually manages to find Exaferal. So it's not over for either side as of yet. The Transcendence comes out from NKN, but a bio makes it so it doesn't necessarily get the full value. Now a grab coming the other way from Etc. and no support alts up for Rebind Shift to try and sustain. They have to try and back up and live through it, but Nailed It goes down. Does manage to trade onto Crazy Flame's mech, but Rebind Shift not able to get that payload rolling.
Really crucial fight there for Marty's Militia to win. They forced out quite a few ultimates from Rebind Shift, but Kamina, they're already up to 65% to another dragon. They're getting a lot of value out of this Hanzo, but you need to start winning the team fights. And it's dicey. We see that Kamina, they've kind of been trying to switch up the angles on where they're going, but now the sides are going right at it in the marketplace.
Yeah, they are. Nailed it. It finds a bio onto his face. Takes so much damage. The sound barrier out from Chump to try and make it so Rebind Shift can engage, and it works. Rusty Goomba is the first to fall, and now Marty's Militia have to cede some space. They know they can't win a full fight without some ults, and the ult to come out first is that Nano. An ult coming the other way is Shatter out from Nailed It. Means that Rebind Shift can get some cleanup kills here. And as long as they can make it so that none of their players fall, but NK and Kamina both do go down. Rusty Goomba is back to try and stall this out, but it's just him and Marty. It is a 3v2, so it's not inconceivable that Marty's Militia could maybe stabilize here, but it's not going to be the case. Rusty Goomba is going to go down. The respawns are starting to come in one by one for Marty's Militia, but eventually they're just not getting the kills. They're going to have to cede this first point.
Yeah, and unfortunately, they gave a lot of ultimate charge to Rebind Shift. They're going to have the Dragon Graviton combo again, as well as a couple support ultimates. But Marty's Militia, that was a pretty good hold. They really brought them down to under a minute there on that initial push, which means they're only going to have 2 minutes and 40 seconds for the Streets phase, which can be drawn out in a long time. But both sides, lots of ultimates. I'm curious to see how they're going to use it. I think that the Grav Diva Bomb combo from Marty's Militia is going to be a little bit stronger than the Grav Dragon combo that Rebind Shift have, but we'll see how they play it out.
Well, especially since Trick Plays has that Transcendence nice and ready. There's the grab down on the low ground, the Dragaton, the Transcendence, just like we were discussing, to negate the value. Hax is looking pretty low, and he's going to go down. Etc. finds the first kill of the fight and the second onto his counterpart. It's now a 6v4 in favor of Marty's Militia, and they're going to use that to clean this up and hold on that first corner.
Nice stuff there. From Marty's Militia. The bomb from Crazy Flames, though, I felt like could have been saved. I don't think that was really necessary. Rebind Shift, they used that Grav Dragon combo, but luckily Trick Plays for Marty's Militia was there to save the day with that trans. And now both Reinhardts have their Shatter. They could be using them at any moment here.
Yeah, it's all about the mind games. The Brig Bash no longer goes through shields, and neither side has a Brig anyways, but one does have a Grav and the other a Transcendence to counter it out. Can't sustain through a pin, though. Oh, and the Shatter comes out, but Rusty Goomba goes down. The follow-up doesn't come through quite that fast, but it does manage to get there. Crazy Flames with that one, and Rebind Shift with the hold. Or, I'm sorry, with the going back to spawn. It's Marty's Militia with the hold.
Yeah, Marty's Militia, really nice job. Also, interesting little play. While that whole fight with the Grav was going on. You saw Nailed It use their shatter, but Corey got a really clutch sleep right after it happened. So the back line of Marty's Militia was able to stay alive because of that sleep while that Grav was going on. Really nice play there. And now we see Nailed It switching on to the Winston, NKN onto the Widowmaker, and Kamina onto the Pharah. So they're going dive here. They're really changing things up here in the last minute.
Yeah, the Widow Pharah is a pickle for Goats to try and contest. You just got to try and win the ground battle, but you've lost 2 supports first and foremost, and Rebind Shift have a sound barrier to sustain them. Now NKN up on the high ground finds 2, and that's just going to be a nice fight win for Rebind Shift.
You know, normally dive isn't really a great composition to go into the triple tank, triple support, but I think that what Rebind Shift realized was that Marty's, they're not really protecting their backline. It seemed the tanks were able to get into the backline, so they thought, let's just dive the backline, see what happens. And now it's getting down to the wire here. It's overtime.
Yeah, it's overtime, and the first ult out is a Transcendence from Trick Plays just to sustain. Nailed It, not going to have the same kind of luck as he gets found, caught out over in the room, and now Crazy Flames cleans up the Pharah. So much damage, and a tank gone for Rebind Shift as a Shatter comes out from Rusty Goomba. Doesn't manage to find anything. A Desperation Self-Destruct actually manages to find 2. That might be the stabilizing play that Rebind Shift need, especially as NKN cleans up Crazy Flames over on the side. It's just a Baby Diva and a Lucio on the point, but if they can just keep dancing around Rusty Goomba, they can manage to find the kills and clean this up. The respawns are now in for Rebind Shift, and in desperation, somehow, they managed to get the second point and give themselves more time.
Wow, beautiful stuff. And now look at Rebind Shift getting aggressive, cleaning up those kills. The Diva is going back to spawn. Wow, they really turned that around nicely. So now coming back into this, if you're Marty's Militia, you got to get some good use out of this Grav coming up. You got to make sure that you have Marty's sound barrier to protect from Kamina's barrage that's going to be coming out for Rebind. Yeah, it's going to be really dicey here. Keep your eyes out. A lot of ultimates for both sides.
Ooh, nice shot from NKN there. Now the barrage out finds Rusty Goomba, already 2 down, but Kamina does trade his life for it. So now the Primal out from Nailed It, had to use it to try and sustain himself while he's in the back line. The cart is inching ever closer toward that end, but the respawn advantage is heavily in favor of the defense. Now stacked support ults out from Marty's Militia to just capitalize on top of this Graviton. And they are going to find the kills there, but with 24 seconds remaining, now Marty's Militia have no ults in the bank.
Yeah, they really only have a Nano and likely that Shatter, which are good ultimates to have, especially because Rebind Shift, they have a couple of nice daggers, which is going to make it tough because there's only 10 seconds left on the clock. I don't know if they're going to really be able to make anything out of these last 5 seconds. They are going to be able to touch, but it's going to be dicey.
Yeah, Nailed It, jumps in, gets the... No, doesn't get the overtime!
Oh.
He was there too soon! Oh, he got zoned and slept and denied the overtime trigger. So that will be Marty's Militia holding just shy of 3rd.
Oh, I really feel for Nailed It there. That's unfortunate. The Winston, they should have been there. They were so close, but you know that's how it goes sometimes with Overwatch. And again, I feel like switching onto the dive composition was a really interesting decision. I can understand the logic if you're looking at it from, you know, the way that Marty's was playing the Goats. They weren't really protecting their backline. But the thing about Goats is that if you're able to move as one unit, as one team, focus down people, and then, you know, clean up the rest of the kills afterwards, it's much stronger than dive. And that's sort of what happened at the end of point 2, right? You saw the Winston Nailed It got caught out. Marty's Militia, they moved as one unit, took them out of the equation, and then they were able to clean up a little bit there, although in that scenario, they didn't clean up fast enough. The respawns from Rebind Shift were able to come back in, and they somehow capped that second point. But I feel like switching off that triple tank, triple support to go dive was a risky move and may have kind of led to the downfall into that 3rd part of the map.
I agree with you that in the third part of the map, it was likely kind of a risky play and caused their downfall. But I actually really like it on the second point because you get the Pharah and the Widow. There's so many long sight lines, and you saw NKN and that last fight just get like 3 kills, stabilized for his team after Exafil got that nice self-destruct. So I actually think it was a really smart move. It's something we've seen in contenders. You know what else we see in contenders is some nice headshots. NKN gets the opening pick onto etc. Not going to stop the cart moving, but it's going to make it so that eventually Rebind Shift can maybe get in here. They're not going to be able to do so with their healer, however. Hax is the first one to fall on the defense. NKN coming down shortly afterwards, so they open up with some nice picks, but now they're at a heavy player disadvantage as they're desperately trying to hold the archway. They didn't hold very forward, and Marty's Militia just steamroll on through.
Yeah, you mentioned long sight lines at the beginning there, Paulsable, and that's exactly what Marty's Militia are utilizing 4 times around as they have 4 DPS on the field right now, a composition that you often only see on Route 66, but Marty's Militia, they're making it work for them here. Really nicely done. Rebind Shift, they're switching onto a dive composition with that Widow Genji, but oh, Corey already found Kamina.
Well, I was about to say that the Widow Genji is definitely what you want to switch to counter the quad DPS, but you have to be able to live, guys, because the Genji and the Widow have to live to get the picks. And both of them fall first in this fight. Now it's just tanks and supports, and Rebind Shift have to back out and let the payload keep moving.
Yeah, they sure do. They got to rethink how they're going to approach this point. There are so many threats coming from different angles, and look at the ultimates that Marty's Militia have on the field. They're going to have that dragon. They're going to have a barrage, maybe even the sights. Or the soldier ultimate. There comes the barrage.
Yeah, the barrage is out, but NKN shuts it down. Nailed It is traded. So it's an even fight thus far. The res comes up, and now it's not so even. No tanks for Rebind Shift. No one to stop the Visor or the Dragon. And Marty's Militia are going to invest pretty much everything, but they're going to keep that payload moving.
They certainly are. And yeah, Rebind Shift, they seem to be really struggling to find an answer to this. They just don't know how to get in there. And when they try to, there's just an ultimate in their face stopping them. So now they're going to cap the second point, and there's 5 minutes and 43 seconds left on the clock for Marty's Militia to continue pushing here. They're in a great position. They're going to have the sights, and Rebind Shift, they really only have their nano, and Hax just got taken out.
Oh no, what? Hax, you gotta play line of sight, but they have so many angles. You can't just walk into the open, neither can UX. I know you got the defense matrix, but it's just too much damage for you to be able to deal with. Now it's with 5 minutes and 15 seconds. The payload's only 20 meters away from Marty's Militia, going up 2-0 in this series. Corey finds yet another opening pick onto NKN. There's another one onto Kamina. A desperation sound barrier to try and sustain the remaining members of Rebind Shift through this fight. They're going to pick up a kill onto Marty, but Nailed It goes down as well. Rusty Kumba is also traded, so it's not quite curtains yet, but as the Dragon comes off, it's going to zone out the remaining defensive players here. It's just Chump in the back. Now the DPS are coming back in. They got to find these picks quickly, and they don't have any tanks to provide them with space. Kamina's dueling Tricky Flames in the back, but meanwhile, NKN loses to the Diva of Crazy Flames, and Crazy Flames uses the bomb to take Nailed It. Now the Tack Visor out from Trick Plays just to clean this one up, put the nail in the coffin. A Diva on the point against the world, not gonna work out. And Marty's Militia are gonna go up 2-0 in this series.
Okay, I want to highlight something real quick. We saw etc. They got a couple really clutch kills there, and I loved their positioning. I'm going to talk about that as we're watching Crazy Flames play the game. They were basically where Rebind Shift were coming out of their spawn, just clicking heads, and then it forced the rest of Rebind Shift to deal with them and then deal with the payload. So really nice positioning from etc. there on the Widowmaker, and very nicely done there from Marty's Militia to take Dorado.
We're going to take it back over onto the desk here. They're going to break down these first 2 maps and set the stakes going into the next ones. Nary, it's on back over to you.
Thank you so much, Paul and Zark. You guys are doing a fantastic job casting, as per usual. Now I'm going to throw it to my big brain analyst and ask you guys a couple of questions and see if you can tell me some wonderful things about these maps. First up, let's have a look at what happened on Nepal. And the first thing that pops into mind is May. Thibble, tell us a bit about this May pick.
So Mei is a hero in Overwatch. Her kit
Uh,
focuses primarily around. No, I'm kidding.
Get to the good
Village,
stuff.
Village is Mei's stomping ground. Not just in the Yeti Hunter arcade mode, but also in competitive open division matches as well. Lots of potential for her there, and both teams put a Mei on the field to great effectiveness. Ultimately, I actually can't remember who won that round, but both of them did a really good job of balancing and like
Marty.
lots of good wall stalls, lots of good blizzards that were taken advantage of by their front lines. Like it was really cool to see both of them understand like Mei is good here. Let's use her. That's going to be a lot of fun. And in general, on all of these maps, these guys were going crazy with all the different compositions we were seeing. You had like Corey playing Anna for most of that, and then he swapped to Hanzo, and then like Ash was there for a second. Bob did something. Like Nepal in general was just really good.
Just quickly for everybody who is as small brain as my supposed big brain analyst, the score is 2-0 to Marty. Thibble.
No, just
won...
Village. I knew who won Nepal. I forgot who
Oh,
won Village. God, that's
I gotta check up on you. Like I gotta make.
He was just too distracted with all the amazing play.
Oh,
leave.
cringe.
Go
Get
away.
out. Okay, but don't leave because I
can't.
need you to.
No,
I need you
yeah,
to
come
answer
back.
the next question. So another thing that we noticed was a lot of these like whiffed ultimates, and what I mean by that is an ult that gets thrown out, but it doesn't seem like there's much of a plan. How does that impact the game? How do you allow that to happen, and what should you be doing when you're thinking about hitting Q?
So I think it goes back to what Thibble was talking about in the first half about the fact that some teams really rely on set piece plays and that synergy, and some teams kind of rely a little more on the individual players popping off. And like he said in that first half, sometimes you see these big ults pop off, and you're like, wow, how do you even think to use your ult that way or in that moment? That was such a clutch play to use it while you're 2 down. And other times you watch a Pharaoh barrage into a D.Va and it gets eaten, and then the Pharaoh dies and nothing fun happens at all. And so I think it just comes down to ults have to be used in the right moments. So there's always that kind of, you're looking and you're hunting for that window. But when you surprise your own team that you're ulting, there's just no follow-up and no one else can help you. And then you're, well, a Pharaoh floating in the sky, and then you're not floating anymore.
I'll go ahead and say if you're thinking about when you want to press Q, you should make sure you are not flying over a giant pit of death that instantly kills you. I call out Crazy Flames on Sanctum there in that first map because he sure pressed Q while flying over an empty pit of death and fell to his death, which is what happens when you do that. I would advise him to not do that. To maybe be standing on solid ground before you press shift and then Q, so you land back on the solid ground, or you stay alive. And then when your bomb goes off, you get your ult back and you can fly over the pit again. That's great. But there's an order to that you have to follow very closely or you die.
We do have a team named Rebind Shift, so it's there. It's in the title. We got to make sure our shifts are right.
More of a forehead moment. They've rebranded. You can take the team out of the forehead, but you can't take the forehead out of the team. I'm just saying. Just little moments though, that's it. Otherwise they've been doing quite well. I will say. I'm not gonna hold that against them too hard. It was just one. It made me laugh. Like, come on. You can't not chuckle at that.
All right. Let's move on to our last point before you guys completely finish me off here. And that is something that Thibble mentioned a moment ago, and that is the ops. Now, I'm going to start with you, Thibble, because it was a point that you brought up. What are the pros and cons of being this flexible?
Pros, you're always keeping the enemy team guessing, I guess. And both of the teams did this very well on Dorado. Tons of swaps to tons of different comps. You had quad DPS, solo tank, solo support. You had 3-2-1s with a Hanzo. You've got Genji dives, Sombra dives, Pharah, Mercy dives, all over the place, different variations of goats, things like that. We saw these guys swap like every other fight. The con to that is that you're not really maybe you build ults once and then that doesn't work and you swap. Maybe you don't build ults and then you have to swap. That's time wasted and ult economy lost. Both of the teams were guilty of this, especially in the latter phases when they had to start stalling. They would swap and swap and swap. Maybe I'll play Macrino. Maybe I'll play Soldier. Maybe I'll do Hanzo Zarya combos. Some of those worked, some of those didn't. So there's something to be said for playing a bunch of different comps. I think it was crazy impressive, the variety that we saw. And all of them were working to a degree, but a little consistency can sometimes go a long way.
And in terms of synergy, and I'm going to throw this one. And I love how well this is going to work out. What kind of havoc can that cause in a team in terms of synergy? Smile.
Well, honestly, it kind of goes into what Thibble's point was, where sometimes you get these comps and you're catching your opponent off guard, and sometimes you're just making all of these swaps and you're just never getting ultimates, and you're giving ultimates to the enemy team, and it's hard when you're watching your team crumble to something that you don't think should work or that you can beat, but you just got to take that second and say, guys, what do we want to do as a group to beat what they're doing? Because I saw a lot of individual swaps coming out, and I mean, you really just need to make that team comp swap and that style swap. It's that they have to play together. You can't just decide to play deathmatch and hope to win Overwatch games. It can work, but that's not what you want to be relying on.
Right. Yeah. I was looking at it and I was wondering how many of these swaps were communicated or discussed with the team, and how many of them were like, guys, I know I've been playing Ana. Gonna swap Hanzo. Trust me. Like, there's a discussion that should be had there. Maybe there was. Maybe it was like, Corey, I know you've been playing main support. You've been doing a great job. We need your Hanzo. And I bet if that conversation was had, Corey was like, yes, let's go. I'm going to show him what's up. And he did. Corey did a great job there. But if Corey just said, I'm done playing Ana, you guys figure it out. I'm going to go click all their heads. Get out of my way. Kamina did the same thing. We were talking a lot about Kamina. He played Zen throughout Nepal and then just decided to do the same thing. I will be Hanzo now. I will carry you. I will get 3 kills every fight as Hanzo. You guys figure out the rest. If that is discussed, that's awesome. That is so cool. If that is just people saying, I'm done playing support for now, that's a little shaky. I don't know. Yeah, that's the whole thing.
Well, now that literally everybody on the desk is done with each other, I think we're going to throw it straight back to our fantastic call. So, Paul, take it away.
Thank you so much, Desk. I gotta say though, you guys have so little faith in these teams. You know, I for one, when it comes to Kamina over on Rebind Shift, you know, I believe in him, right? And he just needs to believe in the me that believes in him, right? So it's fine. Gurren Lagann reference. But Zark, you ready to jump into this next map? Zark, you have been struck with the mute bug.
Oh no, God, I'm so sorry.
It's infectious. It's okay.
Well, I'm back, and I gotta say, I'm excited for this matchup. Again, Mars Militia versus Rebind Shift. We see Mars Militia going up 2-0 in the series. It's a best of 5. Loser picks the map, which means that Rebind Shift have picked Volskaya. So interesting pick here. It was either going to be Volskaya or Hanamura. I guess they didn't want to go for Draw Mura. So we're on to the icy motherland of Russia. And
the map that never ends.
The map that never ends. I love it. So yeah, I think this is a map where we often see a lot of triple tank, triple support as well. But I think that instead of the Reinhardt, we often see the Winston. Teams like to utilize the mobility of the floats, if you will, the triple tank, triple support with the Winston Goats variant, so that they can get onto that high ground that surrounds the point and utilize the map geometry to their advantage, which I think is a smart idea. We also sometimes see teams make rotations. If you're on the attack, for example, you'll sometimes see teams rotate all the way onto the high ground and then by the stairwell with the mega health pack. And I think that's also a really great place, because if you get pressured, if you get in trouble, you can go back. You got an extra health pack there just in case things go south. So I'm really curious to see how these teams are going to approach it. We already see Marty's Militia's composition, or
It's Rebind Shift.
I believe
They
that's Rebind
swapped
Shift.
again.
Yep. They always get me. So
They
Rebind
just go back
Shift.
and forth just to mess with us. Just to
Of
mess
course.
with you and me specifically.
Of course. So more Rebind Shift, they're going to be running the Orisa Diva composition with a Junkrat and NKM back on the Widowmaker. We saw them utilizing that hero before, and Mercy Zen. But Rebind Marty's Militia, they're running.
Excuse me, is that a Torbjorn?
It is Crazy Flames on the Torbjorn. Quad DPS, single tank, and a Mercy.
Wow. Oof. well, NKN decides, you know what? I'm having none of this nonsense. Torbjorn, get that out of here. Soldier, get that out of here. He is going to be taken down by etc. But enough picks have gone through to where it seems that Rebind Shift is going to have to wait this out for the moment.
Yeah, they're gonna wait this out. Marty's Militia, they decide to use that res mechanic on Crazy Flames. I fully support that decision. So looks like we might see some switches. I see Crazy Flames going back to the spawn room. They are going on to Diva, so a short-lived journey with the Torbjorn. Unfortunate. I was enjoying it, but so we can see Marty's Militia. They're running dive. I think this is smart. They're going to try to get into that back line, disrupt that healing, and maybe NKM a little bit.
Yeah, the fight's going down on the point. Meanwhile, the Widows are dueling it back by Rebind Shift spawn, but etc. He finds the kill regardless, rotates back, and can't do anything in this position. May fire back onto etc. But his entire team's dead, and one Widow's not going to be able to come back in and save this point.
No, definitely not. They're going to have to
Not
back
winnable.
out. No, certainly not. Rebind Shift, they're going to be just holding on to that second point now. So that's a pretty good attacking run for Marty's Militia. They read what Rebind Shift were running very well and have actually forced Rebind Shift to switch on to a dive composition themselves. Almost mirror compositions, just a little differences in the healing bag. Etc. finding Chump.
Yeah, difference in the amount of kills as well. Both in for sights out, but etc. finds that opening pick onto the Lucio now, and taking a lot of damage, and goes down. Trick does get traded out, so it is a 5v5 in terms of who is up and who is not. Papa Triste, the next one to fall, and it seems that Marty's Militia just can't find their way in here.
No, it seems like it's a little rough, and I think part of what's making it hard for Marty Militia is that they're only running one healer. They only have Papa Triste on the Mercy, and once they got taken out by the Diva, it was kind of all over. Rebind Shift were able to get back in and get the rest of the kills, so I think that we're going to see switch Corey going onto the end. I think that's a smart move. They won't have any defensive ultimates, so no, Transcendence or Sound Barrier in case things get a little crazy, but they have extra healing. That's going to help them push onto the point.
Very nearly mirrored comps now. Only difference is in the flex support. Zenyatta versus Ana. And the first ult to come out in this fight is the Valk. The next to follow it up is a Dragon Blade, but the Transcendence out from Hacks going to deny a good bit of its value. Now our Dragon Blade out the other way, and no Transcendence to counter it. Kamina goes so deep, and he manages to find one. Chump cleaning up Trick Plays as well. Hacks may have gone down in the backline, and now Kamina is punished for a bit of an overextension. It's a 4v4 here as Rebind Shift try and clean this one up. The Widows are going for the kills, and it's NKN finding the value.
There you go. And again, you see the downfall of not having a defensive ultimate there. Once Kamina brought out the blade, their first target was Corey, and Corey had no Transcendence, no Sound Barrier to save them. So we are now seeing Marty's Militia switch on to that Zen Rhine Goats, very popular. I think that's a smart move to get onto this point here. And Rebind Shift, they swapped NKM onto the Ashe here. So that's an interesting decision. Kamina going onto the Junkrat. So they want to keep the dive tanks, but they're going to try and get Junkrat's tower up very quickly as Marty's is on the point.
Yeah, Marty's have to be careful. Don't feed the ult charge. Stay behind the shield. Kamina at 30% as the self-destructs both come out overhead. Oh, but X-Frill finds half of Marty's Militia, shutting the offense down, trades self-destructs with the enemy Diva, and comes up much bigger.
Very nicely placed right in the corner there. There was nothing that Marty's Militia could do. Very nicely done there from Xfero. And, I think that is a contender for play of the game right now. So now it comes down to, Rebind Shift. You're starting to get some ultimates. You got Chump's Sound Barrier. Do you stick with this dive composition, which is traditionally not very good against the triple tank, triple support? It looks like Marty's Militia, they're going to try and take the platforms around the side of the point. I love this play. We'll see how it works out.
They get in for the most part, but Corey out on the side. Only 5 members actually in. Corey's all alone down main. Trick places the first to fall to Kamina, and now Corey just gets zoned out. A disjointed push out from Marty's Militia, and Chump throws at the sound barrier just to make sure that Rebind Shift win this one out.
Yeah, good read by Rebind Shift. You saw Ash and Diva try and focus down that Zenyatta, take them out of the equation immediately, and that push was over before it really began. So unfortunately, I liked the idea of going on the platforms, kind of sneaking around the back, but you have to go as a team. You have to move as one unit as the goods composition. And so now Rebind Shift, now they have those ultimates, they have the Transcends, they have the Junk Tire. Rebind Shift may be able to hold for this next team fight. There you go. Kamina finding 2 with that Junk Tire is just going to wrap it up.
Possible as they come in. My ping has hit 1,500, so I cannot see.
Oh no. Well, I can sum it up pretty quickly for you there, Plausible. It was a Junk Tire, and it shut the point. It shut the push down immediately. So now Rebind Shift, they're in a great position. They have 3 more ultimates coming up on that Winston Primal Rage. Marty's Militia, on the other hand, they are just starting to get some of their own. They are going to have quite a few though once they do get onto the point. Actually, almost all 6. So this is scary stuff for Rebind. And looks like Paulsable's left the game, so I'm just going to pick it up from here. We see Bob on the point, just zoning out members of Marty's Militia. They've had to go all the way to the back by the edge of the map, and now they're just falling off because they realize it is all over. Really nice job by Rebind Shift to capitalize, only using what ultimates they need to win the team fight. It's really nicely done by Rebind Shift. And now Marty's Militia, they didn't use anything in that team fight, is the good thing for them. So they're going to still have all 6 ultimates on the board, but it's tough. There's only a minute left for Marty's Militia. They got to find a way to get back in. They're going up main. You see Rebind Shift. They're on that high ground, and they've already taken out Corey, and Corey had the Transcendence. We see the sound barrier coming out from Marty's Militia. Bombs for both sides on the point, but it's Marty's Militia who's getting the best of it. Xfiro, though, finds 2. They are finding so many clutch bombs throughout this map. The Primal Raise from Nailed It is stalling out here so that members of Rebind Shift can get back onto the point. Ash and Cam, they find Papa Triste, another support down for Marty's Militia. And now Rebind Shift have somehow come back from the precipice of defeat here and been able to hold. So there's 15 seconds left on the clock. Still quite a few ultimates left for Rebind Shift. They're going to have a tire. Both defensive ultimates. Marty's Militia, they're scrambling here. They've gone on to double sniper with the Hammond to try and get there quicker. Plausible. This is crazy. Both Transcendences on the point. Bob is there too. They're doing something. Kamina finds Papa Triste. It's all over here. Marty's Militia, they weren't able to do anything, and Rebind Shift has somehow stopped Marty's Militia from capping that second point.
Well, I wasn't around to see it, unfortunately, but good on Rebind Shift for their defense. They got to try and work their way back into here. And, holding on second of Volskaya, no easy task. This is a map that often goes into those time banks, as many 2CPs does. So recap it real quick for me, Zark. How was Rebind Shift able to pull that off?
Honestly, it was really efficient use of ultimates. It was utilization of the geometry of the map, which I mentioned earlier being so crucial. They were on that high ground, only got off when it became really crucial, and they focused targets. They always made sure to take out a support immediately, really shutting down Marty's Militia's pushes before they even began. It was really nicely handled by Rebind Shift. And again, Marty's Militia, they just didn't move quick enough as a team. It was, and also they didn't use their ultimates nearly quick enough. They had so many, at one point they had all 6 ultimates, and Corey, the Zenyatta, got taken out immediately. They didn't use anything as a result. So I think that getting more ultimates on the board and actually using them for Marty's Militia is crucial. When you're in that goods composition, you also need to move as a team and move quickly. Take up position on that point. Force the dive to come to you and absorb it. And that's what Marty's Militia has to do. But it's going to be them on the defense this time around, and they're going with a double sniper dive composition. And we'll see how Rebind Shift reacts to it.
Yeah, yet again, not starting off with goats for either team. Rebind Shift coming out on the Widow Hanzo with the very mobile tanks of Winston and Diva. They're going to have to be careful here, etc. Looking for a nice pick. Ooh, whiffs one by Hax's head as the dive comes in onto him. Tries to get out of that one, but Kamina finds him on the side. Nailed it, pays for it though, so it's a 5v5 currently. Crazy Flames mech is down, however. Kamina finding all the value on the Hanzo. Marty's Militia forced to go off around the side, but Trick Players fires back. Now, Rebind Shift set up on the point, have to avoid the picks coming onto them as the dive comes in from Cadet. Finds Kamina, and as the respawns come in for Rebind Shift, they're going to try and work this one back in. They're on the point, they're nearly up to that first tick, but they've got to be careful. Trick Plays still up on the high ground. Corey there as well, and etc. over on the side of the low ground finds Hax. Now the Nano out on cast, but he's jumped away, so not too much value. He's going to jump back in, try and zone the defense back out, and it seems like Rebind Shift just going to take this one slow.
Yeah, Rebind Shift, they're trying to back out of it. They got to find a way to disrupt these snipers because even though Rebind Shift, they've made some progress, it's the snipers just keep killing them as they're trying to push in. So now you see the rotation from Marty's Militia because you see the dive coming in for Rebind.
What a beautiful read of that offense coming out from Marty's Militia. They've got to try and avoid yet another dive coming out onto the backline, but it's the entirety of Marty's Militia there to protect them. Etc. goes down regardless. The self-destruct overhead out from Crazy Flames doesn't manage to find, or out from Xfil rather, finds Crazy Flames mech. Now, 3 kills out. The Desperation Dragon out from Trick Plays to try and stabilize here, but Rebind Shift are going to manage to get this first point.
That was a really nice job by Rebind Shift because once they realized that Etc. was kind of getting caught out, they were trying to back up, and they actually backed up into the supports of Rebind Shift. They sent up that Diva Bomb to that high ground where the rest of the Militia was hiding out, forcing them to not be able to save their teammate. And luckily, though, Etc. has found Kamina to start this next push off.
Yep, that's, you say next push, can't even call it that. Rebind Shift going for the early reset. They recognize no point in going in there while they have such a heavy player disadvantage and are so far out.
Right. Luckily, though, for Rebind Shift, they're going to have a lot of ultimates on the board, 4 to be exact, and they're halfway there to their other ones. Marty's Militia, they're coming up on a couple of their own. Keep your eyes on how Papa Triste utilizes this sound barrier because we got some Genji Blades coming out.
Gonna have to use it now, but can't save, etc. And Can finds the first kill. He's looking for more, but he goes down. There's a 1-for-1 trade here as the Dragon comes out onto the point. Out from Kamina to zone Marty's Militia. Now a Transcendence to re-engage for the attacking team, and they use it to find Corey on the point. Now it's going to be Rebind Shift trying to make this advantage workable. They've got to try and clean these one up, but etc. back out on the Roadhog, just deals so much damage and shuts the offense down.
Yeah, the thing about this particular point is that the defenders have such a strong spawn advantage. So if you lose one person early on, it's going to be rough. I think one of the mistakes we saw there was that Hex EMP decided to use their Transcendence. It looks like they wanted to switch onto the Ana anyways, potentially, so maybe it was not all that bad, but I still feel like they could have held on to that if they really wanted to re-engage in this next fight. They're going to really only have the Diva Bomb to go off of and the Sound Barrier, but Marty's Militia, they have triple tank right now, the Soldier and double healers. We'll see if Rebind Shift are able to break it.
Oh, they've got to break it, but they've got to be careful. They got bioed, and Hax takes so much damage. Manages to run around his tanks and stay alive, but you can't say the same for Kamina now. Cathect, I can English, finds one and nailed it, finds another two. Corey is down here, and Rebind Shift have set themselves up on the point, but they need to try and stick together. The healers of Rebind Shift are getting zoned out, but they manage to find Cathect now. The visor out overhead on the point now. One trick plays only manages to stifle the aggression of Rebind Shift, but it's going to be enough for Marty's Militia to hold on here for the moment.
They're definitely going to hold on. They have a couple ultimates from that fight as well. But crucially, the Zenyatta and the Zarya for Rebind Shift got taken out right at the beginning. It makes it really hard to keep fighting. Ooh, a nice little hook there from Etc.
Yeah, but the bubble coming out from NKN sustains, and nice, the shatter out from Nailed It, lays down the front line of Marty's Militia. A desperation self-destruct overhead, can't find anything. Crazy Flames does manage to remack, and Corey gets the Nano out before falling, but it's just a Nanoed Diva on the point who's been bioed out. One tick is all they need, and they're gonna get it. Rebind Shift are not out of this yet.
No, they certainly are not. Unfortunate for Marty's Militia. There were like 3 people who were so close to being able to touch, but they just couldn't quite get there. It's going to be a Sphero with the play of the game. I believe it was that 3K. Yep. Very nicely done. There it is.
The
Beautiful.
slap right before it, just to add insult to injury. Gotta love it. Gotta love it.
Absolutely. So very nicely done by Rebind Shift. Again, a really really impressive defensive hold. And then on the attack, they played that composition really well. That shatter from Nailed It really sealed the deal for them. And yeah, nicely done on Volsky. I can see why they picked it as their map.
Well, now, next map is gonna be our hybrid map, right? It's gonna be Blizzard World for Marty's Militia. It is their map pick, and they're going to choose Blizzard World. Given the heavy DPS and the lack of goats that we've actually seen in this second half, what do you think the strategy for Marty's Militia is here, considering this is their map pick?
Right. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some more double sniper, right? We saw that throughout Volsky a little bit and Dorado. So, that's certainly something that, Etc. They love to play the Widowmaker. We've seen different members of Marty's Militia pick up the DPS at certain points. But so, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw double sniper at one point on Dorado. I know we saw Farah. I believe that was Rebind Shift that actually used that particular hero. But in any case, wouldn't be surprised if we saw some deviation from the triple tank, triple support. I think that these teams, they use it as a last resort. When it comes down to brass tacks, that's when they switch over. But you can tell that they're more comfortable flexing their hero pool than not.
And, flexibility is something that the desk brought up a lot, right? As both a benefit and a kind of, not deterrence, not the right word. Both a plus and a minus. Let's go with that.
Sure.
So, if one of these teams were to just pull out the GOAT's composition against these heavy DPS comps compared to what we're used to seeing at this point, how does the GOATs shut that down?
Well, it's all about kind of how I've been mentioning earlier. It's moving as a team, it's focusing down targets, and it's catching people out of position. So, lots of times with these DPS heavy compositions, they'll be in certain areas trying to get different angles on the enemy. And it's all about the GOAT's composition being able to either focus out the DPS who are, separated from their team, or if you can't reach them, you make a beeline for the back line, take out the supports quickly or whoever's there and just obliterate them and then move on from there. Take out the rest of the pieces. So, against the DPS compositions, we often hear that tanks need to make space for their DPS, right? That's kind of a phrase that we often hear. So if there's no tank to make that space for the DPS, then things start to crumble. So for the GOAT's composition, it's all about singling people out, focusing them down, whether that's a tank, a support, a DPS. But you have to move as a team, you have to move as one unit, and you have to move quickly.
Well, here we go. Rebind Shift going to be starting their defense with that GOAT's composition, opting for the Winston instead of the Reinhardt here. I think that's the first time I myself have seen Winston for the defense on this first point.
Yeah, this is pretty interesting. We'll see how it pans out. Again, like you said, triple tank, triple support. So they want to utilize the high ground that's surrounding the point, kind of like a first point of Volskaya. They utilized the high ground very well on their defense's second point. So I am not too surprised to see this coming out from them. But Marty's Militia, they're running that quad DPS with the Wrecking Ball and the Mercies. So again, they are really comfortable with this particular composition. I'm excited to see how it plays out here.
Nailed it, goes in, tries to tickle down some of these DPS, but just can't manage to find his way. Never mind, he manages to find his way onto Trick Plays. Goomba stomps him, and Corey does find a nice headshot onto Kamina. So it is a 5v5 right now. But as I say that, Corey goes down. Nailed it's traded out, so now it's a 4v4. Trade's going both way, and Marty manages to get the res onto Corey. That negates so much of the pressure that Rebind Shift have been putting forward on this defense. They managed to take out the only tank, so now it's all up to the DPS to create their own space. They're kind of clumped up on the one side of the point right now. Gotta dance around NKN on this Zarya. Got more than enough charge to be a hindrance. Trick Plays right now just running around trying to stay alive here, but etc. not going to have the same kind of luck. Kamina finds him, now back on the Sombra, and it looks like Marty's Militia are just going to have to wait this one out.
Yeah, really interesting stuff coming out from both these sides. Rebind Shift, they did a good job of, like I mentioned earlier, focusing out targets who are out of position. They took out the soldier immediately, but then they overextended. They got too aggressive. Crazy Flames and the rest of the DPS heavy composition were able to capitalize on that mistake. But now Rebind Shift, they're going back in. Here comes a barrage.
Yeah, the barrage finds one, but he's traded out, and Corey goes down as well. The res comes out, so it's currently a 5v5 on the point. The dragon over onto the side, not quite aimed at Rebind Shift so much as aimed at zoning them away. It does manage to find Chump regardless, and Corey finds yet another kill onto Hacks with just a hail of ultimates. Marty's Militia gotta clean this one up and get themselves that first point.
Yeah, and that's kind of the goal of this particular composition, right? You just overwhelm them with the ultimates that you build up, because you'll get them quickly going into that tank heavy composition that Rebind Shift are running. But coming into this next one, it looks like Marty's Militia, they're changing things up a little bit, etc., going onto the back onto the Widowmaker, I should say. But they're sticking with this quad DPS composition. I like this. Keep running until it doesn't work, but here comes a Grav.
Yeah, the Grav's out on the point. It catches so many, and the Orisa shield just can't save them now. It's a pretty heavy player advantage for Rebind Shift as they clean this one up.
Yeah, and efficient use of ultimates there too. You only need the Grav to win that team fight, and you're switching NKN's Zarya for Widowmaker. So they want the Widow duel, but Trick Plays, they find Kamina as they were trying to get into the backline there.
Yeah, that's an early player advantage for Marty's Militia to get some space. Kamina will be back quickly and will have that EMP. NKN finds the opening pick onto Crazy Flames, forcing out the resurrection, and that's when Rebind Shift want to try and get aggressive. Nailed it, pops the primal, and tries to get Trick Plays rather, but it's actually going to be Trick Plays finding Jump. Marty is down, so there is no healing for Marty's Militia at all. That is their only healer, and Trick Plays going to find that out the hard way. Go down on the side, as it seems Marty's Militia going to keep the payload moving somehow, but they're not going to be able to find too many kills in the meantime.
Right, and it all started with NKN finding that pick onto Crazy Flames to start that off. Crazy Flames, they need to be careful. Here comes a dragon.
Yeah, the dragon over on the side finds Hacks EMP, but Xferal finds two with the bomb EMP. Now Marty's Militia, they had an opening into that fight, but they just got shut down by the combo coming out. And Rebind Shift are going to hold yet again.
Wow, I can't believe that panned out for them. Corey, they found a couple. What? This is still going on. What is happening here?
Just NKN who's alive anymore. Nailed it is coming. The tanks are coming back in, but NKN was the only one to survive there. And Marty's, with the respawn advantage, actually managed to push this point.
And you know what? Kamina on that Sombra is doing a lot of work right now. They are really disrupting things, whether it's hacking the Pharah or getting those nasty EMPs. Really nice stuff.
Ooh. The barrage comes out from Crazy Flames, but he can't find any kind of value. Xferal was sitting right there, and now ult's coming out from Marty's Militia to no avail. They seem to have burned nearly everything there, but they just can't find any kills.
and now they've actually forced Crazy Flames to swap off of the Pharah and onto the D.Va. I think that was much needed. It maybe could have even come a little bit earlier. They weren't really getting the value they needed out of that Pharah. Here comes another Dragon, though, from Core. It seems like every fight they have it, but
yeah,
was it
just
Eden?
going for the switch? Nope, Spawn Dragon.
No,
He was back in Spawn, just going to switch. It will be it's actually not goats. It's just a different composition coming out from Marty's.
Different indeed. They have 2-2-2, 2 tanks, 2 DPS, 2 hit scans, in fact, and 2 supports. So now Trick Play is the only one with an ultimate online. They're going to have to get a lot of value for them to cap it because there's only a minute left for Marty's.
Right now, it's sort of most of Marty's Militia are just sitting here on the point, getting contested on the high ground. But the first kill comes out onto Kamina, and now with the Mech of X-Roll gone, that's all Trick Plays was waiting for to pop that visor out. Manages to find one as etc. Cleans up another and another on the Widowmaker and nailed it. The Primal expires, and that's going to be as long as he can contest, as Marty's Militia are going to keep that payload moving.
Etc. finally finding some kills there. Trick Plays, though, that ended up working out for them. Kamina is the only one on the point, just stalling out a little bit. I don't think it's going to lead to much, though.
No.
Yeah, it looks like a Rusty Goomba. They had the charge there to make sure that Lucio couldn't touch. But, you know, Rebind Shift, they're backing out here. They've been stalling out very well. You know, this isn't too bad. But now they're getting a little, they got to get back to spawn. They're getting too ahead of themselves.
Yeah, they got those bad respawns that are kind of forward here. So they are going to lose Nailed It. But they trade onto Rusty Goomba, which stifles Marty's Militia aggression for the moment.
So now if you're Rebind Shift, you have another EMP bomb combo. If you're Marty's Militia, you have to be alt tracking, you have to be aware that this is coming online, and you have to be careful.
There's the bomb placed in a corner, and the EMP actually not positioned too spectacularly, and he's not able to find a kill. Etc. punishes him, and now a self-destruct the other way to force Rebind Shift into an awkward spot. Nailed It gets pinned by the counterpart of Rusty Goomba, and there's no one to protect Rebind Shift here from the offense anymore. And KN gets chucked, or actually I think kills himself with a right click there, and now the payload very near the end.
That was a really nice D.Va bomb, by the way, from Crazy Flames. Forced Rebind Shift to be completely opposition. Now this payload is so close to being capped.
Yeah, I can just barely touch, but it's the D.Va, and meanwhile, Trick Play using that positioning to his advantage, cleaning up 2 on the side. Rusty Goomba cleans up the rest, and that will be the point capped. And Marty's Militia even had some time in the bank.
Wow, really nice stuff. And again, you mentioned before that EMP being just a little bit out of position was really crucial. It was really impactful because they weren't able to get that combo off. They, you know, really needed to have a big combo to slow down that just the pressure that was coming out of Marty's Militia. They were doing such a good job of pushing forward. And without that combo, things just kind of stalled out for the defense. And plus that D.Va bomb from Crazy Flames, putting so many members of Rebind Shift out of position. Really nicely done. So they capped the point with a little over 30 seconds left. So that's really good. It means that even if Rebind Shift are able to cap all 3 points, and it brings us to, you know, another round, they're going to have time on the clock. They're going to be able to have a chance to cap it.
Yeah, but it is under that 1 minute mark. So all Rebind Shift have to do is cap. Doesn't matter if it's overtime. Doesn't matter if they have 5 minutes in the bank, right? They have to cap, and if they don't, they are eliminated from this series, and Marty's Militia will win it out. Reminder, Marty's is currently up 2-1 in this best of 3 first to 3 map wins. Or not best of 3. First to 3 map wins is how it is. If it was a best of 3, we would have been done already. But it's a first to 3 map wins.
Right. So now we're going to have Marty's Militia on the defense. They're running triple tank, double support, and then Trick Plays on the Sombra. We saw Kamina utilizing that Sombra very well on that defensive hold for Rebind Shift, and it looks like Kamina's going to be going back onto the Sombra again, so they might just be scouting, though.
Yeah. Kamina goes up, sees that it's mostly the goats, but can't find Trick Plays, as Trick Plays is now scouting them out at their spawn, waiting in the back, getting some damage on to Kamina. The duel comes out, and he's got to reposition here and just kind of back that one up. Now Rebind Shift gonna try and find their way down the middle. They know there's a Sombra on the enemy team now. So they've got to play around that hack ability. They're going to push up rather aggressively. Etc. takes some damage. The pin, super aggressive from Nailed It, but it manages to find Rusty Goomba. Now it's a huge opening for Rebind Shift to get in here and get aggressive. Crazy Flames loses the mech, and that's basically the fight won. Etc. going down. Now Marty's Militia just throw their bodies onto the point one by one, trying to stall this one out. But it will be Rebind Shift managing to get this first point.
It was actually a pretty interesting play that was coming out from Marty's Militia. It didn't pan out for them, but they got the hack onto the D.Va, and then you saw Corey throw out an anti-grenade that couldn't be eaten, right? Because D.Va was hacked. And unfortunately, though, Nailed It was there with the pin onto Rusty Goomba. There was no way that they could really engage on that play, so kind of unfortunate. Now Rebind Shift, they have a couple of Ultimates trick plays. They're going to have an EMP as well, though, so we'll see how it plays out.
Oh, there's the Shatter, lays down two. Gotta try and get the follow-up, however. NKN does manage to get in the back line and clean up too. The Zarya is just uncontested, laying waste to Marty's Militia in the back line. NKM with the 4 and the mech. Completely uncontested.
You can tell that this is a Zarya player who mostly plays DPS with those flanks. That is the mindset of a DPS player right there. I love it. Very nicely done. And they have a grab now.
That wasn't even a flank. That was just, let me walk past your Reinhardt. He's laying on the ground over there. I just want to clean them up. Now he's got the grab. The EMP does come out as NKN throws it down, so the follow-up cannot come through. Self-destruct out. Over onto the high ground, only manages to get Crazy Flames another mech. But it's Marty's Militia with all of the kills at the moment. A Shatter yet again from Nailed It, and he cleans them up. Somehow Rebind Shift managed to stabilize and push this one through.
Oh my goodness. How Nailed It. How were you able to get that Shatter off and secure that point? Really nicely done from Rebind Shift, despite the fact that the fight went way out of the way, and now we're just seeing some cleanup coming out from Rebind Shift, capitalizing on the bad spawns, but it's actually Trick Plays who finds Nailed It.
Yeah, so the thing about capitalizing on respawns, guys, is if their whole team gets the bad respawns and you send 3 people in, believe it or not, that's still a disadvantage for you. So now Rebind Shift have to be a little bit careful. Nailed It is already back for this fight at the first corner. Gotta be wary though. Marty's Militia have plenty of ults, but the first one is the Shatter thrown into the shield. Now a Sound Barrier out from Rebind Shift to allow them to get aggressive, take out Rusty Goomba. They've got a Transcendence to sustain through Etcetera's grab, despite the bio coming out onto their backline. A Shatter from Nailed It yet again, just to clean it up, just to finish it out. And that payload's gonna keep moving with 4.5 minutes in the bank.
Nailed It is having the time of their life on this Reinhardt right now. Beautiful stuff. And now Rebind Shift, they're coming up on the D.Va Bomb Graviton Surge combo. So this is a great opportunity for them to cap it with over 4 minutes in the bank. Yeah, this is huge.
Over Marty's 4 minutes and barely 10 meters to go. Marty's Militia re-engage with the rally. Self-destruct out overhead from both sides. X-Roll's the first to go down, but he trades out onto Marty. Nailed It gets the mech of Crazy Flames, but trade's still going either way. Nailed It's trying to find the value over onto Corey, but he gets zoned out a little bit here. Gets punished, and etc. There's no Reinhardt to protect the backline of Rebind Shift, and he goes wild.
Oh yeah, so you saw Rebind Shift try and use that Graviton Surge D.Va Bomb combo that I mentioned before. Didn't pan out. There were too many shields in the way. You saw Nailed It try to get a charge onto one of those shields, but didn't quite connect. So now you got to find a way to get back into this. If you're Rebind Shift, you do have a Shatter coming up, but not a whole lot else. Maybe the Nano. If you're Marty's, you don't have a whole lot either. It's really going to come down to who's going to nail the next big crowd control ultimate.
Yeah, and Rebind Shift have more in their bank. Exactly one more, and it goes down. It lays down 3. The Bio to combo. Rebind Shift looking to send us into those time bank rounds. The Nano onto Nailed It just for the sake of it. And with about 3 minutes in the bank, we're going into time bank.
Someone stop Nailed It. So this is insane. These shatters are unbelievable. Just really exactly what Rebind Shift needs. Sometimes all you gotta do is press W and Q, and that is what Nailed It is doing today. Beautiful stuff. And now there's over 3 minutes left in the bank. This is a great position for Rebind Shift, whereas Marty's Militia, they only have a minute. So you know, Mars Militia, they are up 2-1 in the series, but right now, Rebind Shift, they're looking like they might be able to tie it up.
Well, and keep in mind, when Marty's Militia pushed out on their first offense, it took them a good 2.5-ish minutes to get that first point. Rebind Shift, they won it in one fight and steamrolled practically the whole way, only losing when they got to the very end of the map. So Marty's Militia, this is an uphill battle for them.
It sure is. So I'm curious, are they going to try out that quad DPS composition that they started before? Or are they going to play a little more safe this time around, go with the Zen Rhine Goats? It looks like safe to me too, but not so safe on the other hand is Rebind Shift. Look at how aggressive they're positioned. They're in this little area off to the side. I don't know if Marty's Militia is going to be prepared for it.
There's no scout out from Marty's Militia, right? They're not doing that this time around. There's no Sombra to try and come out and see where they're playing. A good bit of positioning here from Rebind Shift could gain them a massive advantage. Marty's Militia coming out, but they go for the right side rotation. Rebind Shift are now in the wrong spot to try and capitalize. They're going to go for this fight anyways. They're just going to charge straight into the room. A bio coming down actually manages to find 3 of Marty's Militia, so it's still a relatively even fight, but Marty's Militia kind of have the advantage here. I'm surprised they're not just running straight to point. Guys, you've only got 30 seconds remaining. Every second you try and fight this one out is one you don't have on the point. Now the rotate comes out, and it's Marty's Militia who get to the point first. Now a Nano out onto Nailed It, but he overcharges, goes a little bit too far. Team takes a lot of damage, but he is out on the point. Takes too much, and Nailed It's the first to fall. Now Marty's Militia look to stabilize, but they lose their own Reinhardt. They find the kills to make it matter, though, and Marty's Militia are, in fact, going to get this first point and get this payload movement in overtime.
Nailed It has, for the most part, had such a solid game, but I think you gotta unbind Shift again. No charges for you, Nailed It. You went way out of position.
Don't you mean rebind it?
No, I'm saying unbind it. No. They were way out of position. Luckily, they do have a Grav and a Transcendence to get back in. It is overtime, but Mars Militia, they have a Shatter and a Deep Bomb coming up of their own.
Yeah, there's the grab out and a Transcendence to counter it, but the bio finds 5! Oh, Hacks coming up absolutely massive on the defense. The self-destruct manages to get the mech of X for real, but it's just not enough staying power on the point for Marty's Militia. Trick play Corey, they're all gonna fall. It's just a diva against the world. Overtime spawns means nobody else is gonna get there, and Rebind Shift gonna hold just outside of that first point.
Hacks EMP with the crucial biotic grenade to make sure that none of that Transcendence healing got to the rest of their team. Really heads up play. Beautiful job from Hacks EMP, the honor for Rebind Shift. So now Rebind Shift has 3 minutes and 19 seconds to cap the point and then push the payload just a little bit farther than Marty's Militia in order to win this map. But again, they have to cap the first point, and sometimes that's difficult for teams to do.
Yeah, well, they didn't have much of a difficult time with it on their first go around, however.
That's true.
They did manage to subvert that Sombra Ana combo that you were so hyped about. They managed to get around that, but it's not going to be the Sombra Ana on the defense this time. Marty's Militia, yet again, just playing it safe, going for the staple, the meta, the Rhine Zen Goats.
Yeah, we'll see how this plays out here. So with this composition, right, you want to, again, move as a team, focus targets down, but mostly in this scenario, you kind of want to take up space, but it looks like Mars Militia, they want to go for the same sort of, sneaky play on the side. This is dicey. This is the same position that Rebind Shift were in. I don't know about this.
Well, and Kamina out on the Sombra, going to read it entirely, right?
Yeah.
Just, that's the scout I was talking about last round, right? It does seem that Marty's Militia, they do manage to realize, hey, we haven't seen them yet. This isn't going to work. Let's go back to point and play this safe.
The paranoia came out. They were like, no, I'm too scared. Let's back up. Let's take up space on the point, which is what I originally thought they were going to do. And looks like I think that's the safer choice.
It absolutely is a mirror matchup now as these teams work out, but actually not so mirror. Hacks on the Ana, gonna be the first one to go down. Nailed It follows, And Marty's Militia capitalizing off the fact that Rebind Shift don't actually have a Brig. So when I said mirror mashup, it was wrong. And because of that, Marty's going to hold.
Yeah, so they recognized that Haxi on the Ana was giving Rebind Shift quite a lot of value, so they made sure to take them out.
We're done with goodbye. Get them out of here.
Exactly. So now Marty's Militia, crucially, Rusty Goomba, they're up to 80% of their shatter. Nailed It is only 43%. That's a big difference in the Reinhardt battle, and Rusty, they might be able to capitalize on it.
It's not the only difference. Corey has that Transcendence up and online. Keep in mind, Rebind Shift have to win this fight and this map to keep themselves alive in the series. They're going to push forward, but the Shatter comes out, locks up 3, and with that, Marty's Militia just going to push forward and clean them up.
I got a little nervous when I first saw it because the shield was up for Nailed It, but unfortunately, half his team wasn't behind it. That's not going to save you if you're not behind the shield. So, nice heads-up play from Rusty. They were able to capitalize on that ultimate advantage they had over Nailed It. And now the entire ultimate bank is in Marty Militia's favor. They have 4 coming up on 5. Rebind Shift, they're going to have a couple of their own, but they're still behind. They're not going to have that Grav Diva Bomb combo out the gate like Marty's Militia does.
And they've only got 1 minute and 4 seconds to make it work. They get caught in that bigger bang combo. The charge comes through. 2 are already down. And despite the Transcendence invested from Kamina, Rebind Shift hurting on this offense. And they got 50 seconds to make one more push work.
Wow, Mario's Militia, they are definitely making good use of their composition, playing it very well, and only using what they have to in order to win the fights. They use 3 there. They're going to have 3 coming up, including 2 defensive ultimates. That's crucial because we have 2 major crowd control ultimates plus the Diva Bomb as well that are coming up that they're going to have to use to sustain themselves.
Look where Marty's are.
Oh.
Rebind Shift, do they read into this?
No.
They don't get seen. The Shatter comes down, Nailed It gets locked up. A sound barrier out from Chump is just too late. The grab does come out the other way, but the shield is there to block any kind of value from the bomb, so it's still a heavy disadvantage. Now the Nano out from Hax doesn't hit its intended target. It hits Kamina instead, and he just gets cleaned up by trick plays. Desperation for Rebind Shift is what was a beautiful win condition. Falls to the wayside. Nailed It desperately charges back in, but he just gets stunned out. And Marty's Militia going to hold on first and take this series 3-1.
Wow, I am out of breath. That was a really great series. Marty's Militia played that defense on Blizzard World so well. Just so well. We're going to see Trick Plays play the game here. I believe this was the Shatter. Yep, they capitalized on the Shatter. Very nicely done. A little melee action there, too. But ultimately, Marty's Militia, they just utilized their ultimates so well at the end there. And they played creatively, too. That little, hiding on the side, waiting for Rebind Shift to get aggressive, and then capitalizing on their overextension and taking the Reinhardt out of the equation. Really heads-up play. Really nicely done.
Let's talk about those heads-up plays, the clutch ults, the aggressive Zaryas, everything about the second half of this series. We're going to throw it on back over to the desk. We'll see you later.
Thank you so much, Paul and Zark. You guys have been wonderful as always. Big Brain Analysts, let's dive straight into this. And the first thing that I want to talk about is Volskaya. And something that you guys brought up, Thibault, you especially, was the DPS matchup. Tell me a little bit about how these DPS matched up.
It's tough to talk about a specific DPS matchup because, as with the first half, these guys were swapping like crazy. I think the big one that I was really paying attention to was NKN versus Etc. NKN was pretty consistently winning that, mostly in the Widow duel. Etc. swapped to Roadhog at some point, and that wasn't going too hot. There were a lot of things attempted, but overall NKN was playing pretty dominantly. Lots of hit scan flexing between support and hit scan again. His Widowmaker was like awesome. He hit some crazy headshots all throughout that map, and that really helped on Volskaya as well as Blizzard World. It was interesting to see the teams kind of play against one another in the mind game, not just like actually playing against each other, but like trying to outthink one another in these compositions. It was very interesting to see and made for a really entertaining game.
Well, I mean, you just mentioned Incan versus etc. in the DPS matchup, but we also saw them in the tank matchup. And the tank line was something that Havoc, you were mentioning as well. What about these tanks, specifically on Blizzard World? What really stood out for you?
Well, honestly, it was it's almost not the tank line in a way. Now they definitely stepped their game up, and they really started to clean their play up, which was something that we were kind of starting to get on their case about. Was they were just letting Rusty and I mean just kind of dominate the game, and you can't do that. You've got to be able to hold that line down. And now they went for a comp that is being kind of experimented in with contenders, and that is. Changing out the Brigida in a Goats comp for an Ana. Now, it changes the way the heals work, and that started to give their tank line a lot more stability. But we saw in the end some playing some cheeky corners and getting a good shatter and pouncing on the Reinhardt. How much today? How many times today have we talked about all capitalizing on one target? And that's what they did. They only got one person with that shatter, but they made it count. And that came to that tank line adjusting. They didn't like the way they were playing against the Ana support line, so they said, "Look, we're just gonna not get nanoed forehead."
And it's not even just about the cheeky flank shatters or cheeky flank charges or cheeky flank pushes in general. A big thing for me were the biotic grenades coming out from Hack CMP.
Yeah.
Just because, like, sure, you can get a great engagement, you can get a good shatter, you can even get one really good solo shatter and focus that target down. But with enough heals, that can be dealt with. You can pop trans, you can just push all your healing into that one target and try and survive and re-engage on the fight, even if you're surprised. Not so if your entire team has been hit with a biotic grenade and you're not getting healing. That says this fight is over. Give up. Just stop. Stand still and let us kill you. So all these great grenades coming out, and a matchup we don't talk about very much in this meta, the Ana versus Ana matchup, where you have to think about the person who gets the first biotic grenade, the first big purple, has a significant advantage because you can't cancel it out with anything except Zarya bubbles, and those are on pretty long cooldowns. So the better Ana there is going to give a huge advantage to their team because healing is important. So yeah, big brain analysis there. Healing good, no healing bad.
Oh, jeez. I'm gonna fire you, Sybil, one of these days.
Not if I
I
fire
just
you
keep you around
first.
for the memes. Lol. All right. So you guys have mentioned a lot of players, but what's really important for me is who were your MVPs? Like, let's start with you.
Oh, MVP.
Same.
MVP. So I'm actually it's now they didn't ultimately have an MVP for me, but with Marty, I'm going to go with the fact that they really knew how to rotate their substitutes. We saw, I mean, just a little bit of everyone on each map. We saw Marty's come in, we saw Xanathos, we saw so many of their subs come in and rotate, and you really did notice the difference in play styles when they subbed in a player. So for me, it's not one player, but it's the fact that they understood their individual strengths and that they played them map to map accordingly.
I think that's definitely, frankly, a point I hadn't thought about. Managing your substitutes is not something we look at very often. Many of these teams only have 6 players, or if they have substitutes, they only use them like that guy, his power's out, or he's sick or dead or whatever. I guess we have to use the other guy.
Oh my
But
god.
this is a team that utilizes its substitutes for strategic purposes, which I think is really important. I will say, though, my MVP is not a substitute, but rather a player that was always in, but nevertheless knew what he had to do, when to do it, and why. And that, for me, would be Corey. We've talked about him a lot already. Swapping from support to DPS to clicking his buddies to clicking his enemies, doing a great job on all of those, managing the efforts of the team and the ult economy and everything that you need to manage when you're swapping between all those roles, which is not easy, but nevertheless made it work. So I'm going to say Corey for sure, because I don't think I'd be able to do that. I mean, I'm plat, but like if I were that level, I don't think I would be able to do that. So definitely props to him. He stepped up in a big way when his team needed him and made this series something worth watching. So great job to him, but indeed, great job to all the substitutes and the strategic minds at work in both of these games, because this was a thinking man's game of Overwatch for sure.
Absolutely. GG's to both teams. And with that, I think that's going to bring us to a close for this evening. Thank you once again to my wonderful casters and, of course, to my analysts, Havoc and Thibble. You guys are great. It's been an absolute pleasure working with all of you. And thank you, as always, to Qbot for being our producer. You're an absolute lad. Please, guys, join us again tomorrow. We have 4 amazing Open Division games, 2 EU, 2 NA. Right here on the BGG channel. We'll be waiting for you. We hope you'll join us. Thank you. Have a great evening.